Hello, welcome back. Friday before Christmas. We've been told we can get together with our loved ones, but then we've been told we can't, but we can, but we can't. Anyway, enough of that bollocks. This is beer and bollocks. Still haven't had my hair cut, as you can see. Oh, I should add, if you like this kind of stuff, then if you don't, subscribe as well. It helps the algorithms. I know you watch it on the telly. Merch, bottle opener and key organiser. Tonight, we're drinking a Banks Amber Bitter. Thank you very much for those who donated to my channel. Some of the donations actually go on beer. Cheers. Oh, it's been a long day. So where are we? Well, before I get too far in, let's do a quick project update on where we are. I'm going to do it Sam Mendes style, so this can be one continuous stream. No editing for me, I'm just going to upload this as it stands, warts and all. Right, project update. So I guess starting from the beginning, from the very beginning, my dad's car. It needs a load of work doing to it still. And we're going to change the seats. He wants Kit Kat seats in that, so we're going to get that sorted out. He wants it repainting, same colour, but just the paint's got a bit flat on it. And there's a few rust bubbles come through here and there. It's about a decade since it was restored, so it's not done badly. And while it doesn't live outside, it does live kind of in an open-fronted barn. So that needs doing. I need to change the A-frame pivot on top of the axle on that car. I started working with the heater. I did resolve one of the problems with the heater, blower matrix whistling, but not all of them. But otherwise, that car's driving really well. My car, L95, it wants for everything. It's like the cobbler's boots, I'm afraid. Everyone else's car comes before mine. And unfortunately, I tend to fix it on failure. So I've got two issues with it at the moment that need my urgent attention. First one, I think the Bose self-leveling strut has failed on it. I've got a couple more on the way over. But also, even with no load, the back end is sagging somewhat. And I think that after 206,000 miles and some fairly regular use, its original springs, I think, are tired on the back. So I'm going to swap those over. What I've basically done is I've ordered from Famous 4, I've ordered their standard height 25% uprated springs, because I occasionally tow. I thought I'd give them a go. I'll report back on those. So that's those. Stag. Absolutely nothing has happened with the Stag since the last progress report, much to my shame. It's still, sorry, sniff. It's still sitting in my garage here at High Wycombe. Still sitting here with a diff that's howling because it's shat all its fluid out because I ballsed up the backplate sealing. I'm gonna, probably about February, maybe even March time, I'm going to get some time in the workshop with that car, and I'm going to, well, first of all, I'll fill up the diff with oil, drive it the mile to the workshop and see if it's improved. If it has, then lucky, A. If it hasn't, then obviously we're looking at a more intensive rebuild on that diff. So that's that. I still need to repaint the engine bay on the Stag. I still need to give it some love. I gave it a wash. It needs a service. So yeah. Giles's Stag, Pro Bonio project. Yeah, we gave it the first service. He did about 400 miles in that car since we first put it together. Quite usual to retorque the heads after a short period of time. However, next time I do this, I'm probably going to wait, warm it up properly, let it cool down properly, and then retorque the heads after the first run. Because all of the bolts and studs were down to about 30 foot-pounds, and they should be 55 foot-pounds. Anyway, change the oil, retorque the heads, allow Giles to go up to, I think, 4,000 RPM now, I've said to him. Anyway, we're going to do that. He's pretty much not using it because it's winter time now. Like I said, it's the weekend before Christmas. Is there any punctuation in this video yet? Have you noticed? Am I speaking too fast? Sorry. Yeah, so his car is probably tucked up in the garage, but he's using it and he's very happy with it, and it pulls like a train, and we gave the carbs a little tune-up. And that has made a fair bit of difference to him. He's quite happy with it. It sounds gorgeous. His bloody overdrive isn't working though, still. So now I know how it's all wired in. I shall next time he comes over, I'll bridge the wire that goes directly to the overdrive and see if we can get it to kick in. So that's Pro Bonio project. I'll brush over my son's cars because they're just normal stuff. One son's got a Mark IV 9N Polo, 1.2 3-cylinder. Failed its MOT because my son drives it like he fucking stole it, and it's failed mainly on suspension components and emissions. So that's at the moment in the workshop, because when he shows enthusiasm, I work with him to change springs. When he doesn't show enthusiasm, I get him with my stuff, which I get paid for. My other son has got a Clio, a 92, probably a Mark II Clio, I guess. Both of these cars are 350 quid. Both go really, really well. Okay, paint's a bit shabby and stuff, but they're 18 years old, for crying out loud. Anyway, yeah, youngest son's car, it's got a belt squeaking and it's making some noise, and I think it's going to be the water pump, and I know it's going to be a timing belt change. And anyway, that's that. Southpaw. Yeah, I spoke to Mr. Southpaw just this week, oddly enough, and he's now quite interested in getting his car booked into phase 2 early next year. It's going to be about end of March, I would have thought, by the time we get in there. But there's a number of things that he's really looking at doing. We're either going to upgrade the 200 TDI to a V8. If we do that, it will go with an automatic gearbox. If we stay with the diesel, then his current gearbox has got weak synchros on second and third. It's an LT77 with the 230 transfer box, the one with the separate diff lock that goes across to the right. Whatever. He's actually, so we were thinking about fiddling around with that, but by the time I got that out, I might as well actually put in a later gearbox or put in an automatic gearbox. Then he was thinking, well, do I want to go 300 TDI auto? And I said, well, what's the point of that? You might as well go V8 auto. I'll be done with it. He wants the bodywork tidying up on it. If you remember rightly, there was some panel damage and so forth. Doesn't want to spend a king's ransom on it. So yeah, that's that one. I'm coming up with some ideas for him, and we'll discuss those over the next month or two. So that's that one. Aegean Blue. I didn't mention it in the last project update, but I have a number of conversations with the owner for Mr. Aegean Blue. And pretty much the brief on that thing was to make it more reliable. Now, he's probably done about 5,000 or 6,000 miles since he got that car back. He goes all over the place in it. He's moved, so he's now living in Lincolnshire. So if you're up in Lincolnshire and you see Aegean Blue, yep, that's Mr. Aegean Blue. He's very happy with it. No further work needed on that. He's going to retrim the headlining. He's a very capable chap. I mean, he did all the welding on that car. So I think he just lost his mojo with it, and really kind of, I almost lost my mojo with it. Haunted car, I tell you. So that was that one. Sandy the Landy is still... We've got some serious interest in Sandy the Landy. Now, it's someone in Devon, and they are very, very interested in it as an estate car. When I say estate car, they've got an estate on Exmoor, and they want to use Sandy the Landy to transport guests around their substantial estate. They're not absolutely filthy, stinking rich or anything like that. It makes it sound very, very grand, but they've got a very, very large estate. Now, the trick is that they are looking for Sandy the Landy to have inward-facing rear seats, hoops and a canvas tilt, full-length canvas. But obviously they're aware it needs a chassis replacement, and I've come up with more or less a fixed price that makes it interesting for me. I make a quid or two out of it, and my dad sees a return on his investment, and I see a return on my investment, and they get a bargain of a Series 3 with beautiful mechanics, and fully rebuilt all throughout, bulkhead, etc., with a new chassis. And then on top of that, we're talking about hoops and canvas. And I'm actually dissuading them from painting it, because I think, there's a certain attraction to shabby chic or shaggy sheep. So that's Sandy the Landy. Red Shed has been relocated. I'm waiting really for a break in the COVID situation to go and see the owner for that. We're going to draw up a plan for things he wants to do, things he wants to learn how to do, and things that really he just wants me to do for him. and acting largely as a consultant, but I see myself doing a reasonable amount of work on that car as well. And what I'm really doing is lessons learned from the first car I did, Alan, which is sold, and I haven't heard anything about that since I sold it. Actually, if you're the owner of Alan, give me a shout, because I've got all the old tax discs for it. They're not in great shape, but I've got a big pile of tax discs, road tax discs. You might want to chuck them in your history file. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought there. It happens. This is a single continuous take, you see. So, yes, Red Shed. Lessons learned from Alan. That project was nearly 1,200 hours. Bob, which I'll come on to in a second, is going to be way below half of that for a similar amount of effort. And so far, we're on plan with that project. And I'm really drawing up a restoration kind of high-level project plan that we're going to execute with Red Shed. So we've been through the conceptual phase with Alan. We're proving the conceptual revisement, I don't know, on Bob, and then we're going to execute it with Red Shed. So I've promised the owner that I'm going to deliver on that. So that's Red Shed. Bob is now in High Wycombe. There is an episode where I'm dragging it up here. Hopefully you've seen a couple of episodes. We've seen an episode where I'm building the body frame up, but really it was around getting the body frame up. There's no spoilers, but it is in High Wycombe. Effectively, that car now is very much so. So the new owner has committed in a serious way to moving the project forwards, and I will be starting on that project very, very, very soon in the new year, with a view to getting that ready for paint by the end of February, and then really kind of handing the project over in March next year. Very exciting. I'm very excited about Bob, and I've got a lot of love for Bob. What else? Freelander, the fucking Freelander. I think they actually should be called fucking Freelanders. Trouble is, Freelander 2s, they're all right. They're all right to drive, and they're comfortable, and they work, and they actually go off-road. Unlike the Freelander 1. Okay, they have problems with centre diff and rear axles and God knows what. They have all things that break on them, but they're actually all right. The reason I call it a fucking Freelander is because every single pissing job I do on it takes me about 5 times longer than it should do. So Claire wanted me to change the oil on it. I bought the filter. The oil filter is just impossible to get to. Requires not a special. I suppose it is a special tool. Not me either. I'm a special tool. But it requires a special tool in order to get the casing off, so you can put a new cartridge into the oil filter and be done with it. And it's that much of a balls ache that it's actually renowned for mechanics just ignoring it and just changing the oil. While I was on that car, I did notice that the front subframe was getting pretty rusty. A lot of the original factory protection, which I just think was a wafting of powder coat, has disappeared. So that's something I'm going to have to look at possibly in the new year. But Claire's, she's not that fussed about it. It could be on the market. I don't know. The amount of money she spent on it, she probably needs to hang on to it. I changed the air filter on it as well, which was the most disgusting thing known to mankind. It was revolting. Probably weighed about 5 times as much as it should have done. So that's Freelander. TR7s. So TR7, the owner is abroad at the moment. He works overseas. He was due back at Christmas. That might have been pushed back a little bit, and now we're all going into fucking COVID lockdown. I can probably go and see him on business purposes, and of course I'm very, very careful and safe when it comes to visiting other people. But yes, I could probably go and visit him. He has got another V8 engine block, which is going to put the good heads and the TR8 inlet and plenum and so forth onto. That's basically the plan. He was going to get the head off the TR7 engine to find out what the problem was. He did use an endoscope and went into the bores, and there was quite a lot of scuffing on one of the bores. So I'm wondering perhaps if there's a broken piston ring or something that is rattling around in there. The oil pressure's good on it, which kind of would suggest to me it's not a big end or a main, because otherwise the oil pressure would be shite, because one of the first places it goes to is the crank. So, and of course then the oil would just piss past the broken bearing and disappear back into the sump. I found all that about when I had my original stag engine failure. So yeah, TR7's probably no update on that until January. What else? Bulb. My dad's Land Rover, the 88-inch Series 2A, plods on. It's workhorse, that thing. Does everything you want of it. That's had a Galv chassis on it and a new loom. And I repaired the bulkhead on it and put a new pair of doors on it. And yeah, that plods on. I think that's pretty much it. You guys, I'm sure someone will be shouting at the screen right now saying, what about Project? Let me think for a second. Haggis! It's in the workshop at the moment. So, Haggis. Haggis is coming along beautifully. So I have now got pretty much everything I need. I'm on the home straight to basically getting that finished. There are individual updates on there that are trundling along. There was a lot of issues around converting a left-hand drive VM Range Rover to a right-hand drive VM Range Rover. That's largely because the ancillaries all move around from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. They're all quite low mounted, and because of that, the steering box gets in the way. I don't really know, because I'm looking at where the alternator's located. It is a little bit in the way of where the steering box would be in a left-hand drive car, because the alternator's now on the right side of the engine, on the passenger side of the engine. But they designed all the brackets specifically for the pissing thing. You would have thought they would have been it anyway. It's been a challenge, let's say, but luckily I've been able to find someone that's breaking one of those cars and been prepared to liberate the parts of it. Some exciting new projects coming out. I've got a stag coming into the workshop next week. I'll do a quick video on that, but it's just a few odds and sods really that need fixing on that car, getting it running nicely for the owner. I have been talking to a couple of other people about Range Rover restorations as well, but as you know already, the calendar's starting to fill up well into next year, which is great for me. At the moment, with all this lockdown stuff, and I guess because people aren't spending money on commuting anymore, they're all working from home, people are actually buying classic cars and stuff. Because looking at the auctions, we're just moved away from projects now, we're just now onto beer and bollocks. Looking at the auctions, I'm seeing that there's a marked improvement in, that was gross, Richard, marked improvement in the stuff that sells, and the stuff that sells above its lower estimate, which I think is impressive. And there's a number of, really good auction houses out there, because everything's online now, you see. Everything's online. And so people kind of, every single punter is forced to kind of register and log on. So I guess, I don't know, it's a new way of working for the motor auction industry in this country. And it seems to be working. As I say, the market is good. It's not breaking records, but it's good. Seen a few Range Rover Classics go over the block, not over the bridge, over the block, and they've been pulling good values. There are some comedy prices out there still. I mean, there's still people out there that are asking over £150,000 for a Range Rover, a fairly standard Range Rover as well. Quite recently, I saw someone shared it with me. There's someone that's come up with a fully electric Range Rover, and this isn't the Welsh, whatever it is, electric car company that Robert Llewellyn, Crichton, off Red Dwarf, he reviewed it, and I actually thought that was a nice conversion they did, because they kept the original transmission in that car. I don't know what it was. I can't remember what transmission it was in there, but the motor was stuck onto an adapter plate on the front of the gearbox. So you still had the gear stick. You didn't really need to use it because you got a motor in it. I guess you just put it in fourth gear and use the motor. Anyway, the transmission was still in there, but it allowed you then to use the four-wheel drive. Well, the diff lock. So that car, and I can't remember the exact prices, but it was somewhere south of about £50,000 to get that car converted. And it had a 200-mile range, and it was effortless. It did really everything that the owner particularly wanted. It was a good review. It's a good review. I'll detail it in the comments down below. That particular video. It's a good one. So someone else has thought, great, Range Rover Classics. They're all vogue at the moment. In vogue. What we'll do is we'll use my bottle opener here. There's my phone telling me something interesting. My bottle opener to open another Banks Amber Bitter. This is the second one of these, by the way. My first one broke. I was quite heavy-handed with it. If anyone else bought one of these and it's broken, let me know and I'll send you another. But so far out of, a fair few, I've had 2 breakages. And I was particularly heavy-handed with mine, as you've just seen just now. Anyway, so someone's come up with this idea, this concept that Range Rover Classics, they're really in vogue. 2 doors. Oh, honestly, the prices are soaring. You've seen the prices on eBay. 160, 170, 180, £2 million. So they've come up with this concept of a fully electric Range Rover Classic. Great. £500,000. Do you know what? I'd have had it if it hadn't have been bloody Tuscan Blue. I'm taking the piss. For crying out loud. Where do they come up with these fucking numbers from? I would have thought you could go out and buy yourself a Tesla. Buy a brand spanking new Tesla. Strip all the technology out of it. Adapt it into a fully restored 2-door body shell. And that's going to be, what, £40,000, £50,000 for that. Tesla's V80, so that's 130. And then you've probably got about another 50,000 ready just to get it all working. So you're talking 180. Where the fuck does £500,000 come from? Anyway, I'm sure someone will be in the comments below saying, how dare you disrespect. No, honestly, they're going to sell a few of them. There will be people that will be really, really interested in those. And, I think that electric technology is fantastic. And the amount of torque you get from it, not torque as in torque as in, how far you take the hedge with you when you go off the road. I just think, where we are with fossil fuel, great. I love a V8. Everyone loves a V8. Sooner or later, we kind of need to start looking after our environment. And running old cars does look after our environment. I'm firmly committed to this. Why go out and buy a brand spanking new car from the other side of the planet every 3 years to save the planet? Whereas I can buy a used car a decade ago and continue using that car using upcycled, used old stock parts where possible, using my local resources to maintain it and keep it going. It's just, I could have had 4 fucking Priuses in that time. Just think of the damage that 4 Priuses do to the planet. Anyway. There was an interesting survey. It was done in America. Of course, it was done in America. And of course, the Jeep Wrangler came top of the list. So I don't expect any bias whatsoever. But it was a really interesting article because what they were talking about was cradle to grave impact on the environment. They were looking at things like at carbon and God knows what else, emissions, scrapping the vehicle right at the end. So it was cradle to grave. It was from the initial concept of the carbon footprint of the steel made in China or wherever it was made. Because apparently no one else in the world can make it anymore. Because it's cheaper from China. As is COVID. Sure, I'm going to get blacklisted for that. But what they did, they worked out then what car on the American market was the greenest, and this is ridiculous, I know, I prefer to say cleanest, had the least impact on the environment from cradle to grave. And it was the Wrangler. And the simple reason for the Wrangler being in that position, and I suspect the same reason would apply in this country to something like a Series Land Rover or a Defender, because it's bought new by one owner, and that owner will hang on to it absolutely forever. All of their offspring and grandkids will learn to drive in it. And rather than selling it on because it's worth buttons, they just hang on to it. It's reliable, it's dirt cheap to maintain, it's solid, it's got uncomplicated mechanicals, it's got uncomplicated electrics, and so therefore it doesn't really go wrong. And there's no real harm in just hanging on to it. It just sits at the back of the lot, and then people just use it. So Wrangler came out absolutely at the top of the list on one of the greenest cars. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. Sam Mendes just fired me. Single take failed. SD card filled up. Anyway. That was a fuck up, wasn't it? Anyway, so yeah, that was the thing about the cradle to grave. I probably rabbited far too much about that. Maybe it was just someone telling me, Richard, shut the fuck up. Right, so don't quite know where I was going with it, but yeah, I'm probably rabbiting about electric. Anyway, let's just talk about something else now, because I completely lost my train of thought. Mental note now to make sure there's enough room on the SD card. Oh, that's nice, that. That's all right, there. That's all right, that. It's not a bad drop. So, trying to think what else we want to talk about. What else do you want to talk about? What do you talk about in the pub? Well, I probably can't broadcast most of the stuff I talked in the pub. I mean, the kind of the main thing, I suppose, that everyone's talking about at the moment is the COVIDs. It's driving me up the wall. I have to work hard to stay positive sometimes. I really do. And I know you probably do too. We're all in it. And it's not great. And it's a terrible situation to be in. And, you know, we're being advised here now to, if we wanted to, share our Christmas with our loved ones outside of our own individual family unit, then we should be isolating right now from today until Christmas, which is, so we're the 18th today, so it's another 7 days. So isolate from now. Sick of it. Anyway, so I was supposed to be seeing my brother and sister-in-law and my niece and nephews this weekend. That's been called off because we're all going into lockdown, and also they don't want to take the risk. I was supposed to be going to see my father on Boxing Day, called that off. He had a tiny bit of a health scare, really, about his heart, but I think it's be all right. He's a good lad, strong lad, my dad. Not enough gin, I think. I'm being flippant, but no, I think not enough gin, Dad. So that's all been called off. We're supposed to be going to see my very aged in-laws, and that's been called off. So yeah, cheers, COVID. Good effort, that's all I'm going to say. Unlike there's a fair few out there that like to criticise the government. I'm not into that. I don't think anyone knows what to do with it. I think everyone is in the same bloody boat with this situation. And it is driving everyone insane. And I am really, really lucky that I can continue to work throughout this. And I know there's so many people that can't. You know, heart goes out to them, really. That people are struggling. Pubs, restaurants, entertainment industry, cinemas, sports venues. It's just, oh, fuck's sake. It's just driving everyone insane. And when this all kicked off, you know, there's people out there thinking, oh, it'll be all right by Christmas. And you don't have to be a genius to look at the last massive pandemic that we had, which was Spanish flu in 1919. And that lasted 18 months and more or less burnt itself out. And most of what we're doing now seems to be from the Spanish flu textbook. You can look it all up online. There's plenty of information about Spanish flu. But Spanish flu killed more people than the Great War, and it was a horrific pandemic. They call it Spanish flu because Spain, being independent, I believe, during the Great War, was the only one that was really broadcasting via its press that it had this pandemic. There's a fair chance that it came from someone, one of the Allies. Something's happening on my phone. Yeah, but it's just called Spanish flu. Probably came from China. There you go. Oh, there's another one. I'm going to get demonetized. Demonetized for that. But you got to say how it is, really, haven't you? Wokeness drives me at the wall. It really does. You can't say anything for the fear of someone being offended by it. And I'm not going to go berserk here, folks. That's generally what we talk about down the pub. But it's got to the point now where I couldn't even take the piss out of myself without someone taking offence. So, you know, that's driving me at the wall. I think everyone's going stir crazy, and I think that a lot of what's happening socially or whatever, in the extremes of the politics, extreme left. There's not much extreme right in this country, but extreme left in this country, a lot of that is driven by people just going stir crazy. They're sick to death of it. They're sick to death of, you know, what we're going through. And like I say, I do struggle. Some days I really struggle to motivate myself. And I think that's quite a common thing. I mean, the government tells us we're drinking too much. My GP did ask me. He did ask me. He said, so what's your alcohol consumption then, Richard? I said, do you really want to know? If I said 1 pint a week, you're going to tell me to cut down to none. If I said 43 pints a week, you're going to tell me to cut down to 21 units, which is about... How many units in this? It normally tells you on the back. 1.9. This is 2 units. 21 units. 10 of these. 2 days. What am I going to do for the other 5 days? I don't drink every day. I might have done this week. I don't try. I try not to. I'm not dependent. I don't care if I am. I know there's people that do suffer really, really badly with alcohol addiction. So, again, don't go there, Richard. You might offend someone. Yeah, but I don't know where it's going to go to. I think we've got another year of this crap. And then we've got the cost of paying it all back. And that's going to be fun, isn't it? Yes. Well, as a single employee of my own company... bollocks. Anyway, cheers, COVID, like I said earlier on. Oh, this, my wife bought this for me years ago. Rings a bit true, that, doesn't it? I'm sitting here bloody talking about that. Anyway, I'm going to pick myself up now. So let's talk about something amusing. There must be something amusing. There's got to be something amusing. I love my job. That's not amusing. I just love it. Like I say, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky I got out of the IT industry when I did. There's lots of amusing stuff. I did say it in one of my previous Beer and Bollocks sessions. I need to talk about Le Mans. Le Mans 24-hour race in France. It's sort of western France, just southwest of Paris, I think it is. And it's another annexed county of the United Kingdom and Denmark. It's just brilliant. Love going there. Loved going there. It's got a bit too commercial now for me. I remember it back in its kind of... Well, I didn't go until 91. I mean, the heyday. People were saying the heyday was the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, depending on how old you are. But for me, the heyday was really around the early 1990s. It was just epic. First year I was there, sitting up on Tête Rouge. So you got the start-finish straight, you go down the start-finish straight, then you go into the Dunlop curves, and then you go down towards Tête Rouge, Tête Rouge ends up on the Mulsanne Straight. Everyone knows the Mulsanne Straight. Everyone knows him. So, sitting up in Tetra Rouge, Red Earth, sitting up in the woods at the top of Tetra Rouge Hill, it got a bit on the quiet side. So there was less than 16,000 people per square hectare. But you could hear the Mazda 787RB going down the Mulsanne Straight. Now, 1991 was pivotal at Le Mans for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was the year they introduced the chicanes on the Mulsanne Straight, 2 of them. And secondly, it was the introduction of the brand spanking new grandstand and pit complex, which is still there, as are the 2 chicanes. But you could hear that Mazda going the entire length of the Mulsanne Straight. It was so noisy. It made the little hairs stand up on the back of my neck. And then, okay, you couldn't hear it as it was going down in Indianapolis. That was just too damn far away. Too many trees, too much woods, forest, that was kind of blanking out the noise. But then you could kind of hear it as it was coming through the Porsche curves and then down towards the Ford chicane and back into the start-finish straight. This thing was immense. And of course, it won, and it beat the Jaguar, Sauber and Mercedes bitch fest that was going on that year, because they were both bickering about who had the best car. Of course, it was Jaguar. Jaguar they were running in 2 classes that year, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so that Mazda won. And then, of course, immediately the ACO, being as impartial as they are, decided to ban it. We're going to ban rotary engine cars. And I can't remember what the exact reason was they banned it. Because it won, and it wasn't French enough. That's probably true, actually. The ACO are very much like... That's one of the reasons I got pissed off with Le Mans, to be quite honest, because you get anything that's like half decent, it gets banned by the ACO. ACO's the organisers of Le Mans, Auto Club de l'Ouest. It was back in the 1960s, I guess, and Colin Chapman turned up at Le Mans with a couple of little Lotus Elites, not the wedge-shaped Elite, the original Elites that looked much more like the very first of the Elans. Pretty little car, and Coventry Climax engine. Very fast, very light, nimble. And so he entered a couple of those, I believe, Colin Chapman did, under the name of Lotus. And they qualified really, really well. So the ACO sort of took issue with this. We can't have you qualifying really, really well. You're not French enough. Pardon me. So they dragged the car back into scrutineering, and they found that it had 5 wheel stud holes on each of the hubs. So they said, but the production car only has 4 wheel studs on each of the wheels. So they disqualified him. So Mr. Chapman, I believe, this is something I read years ago, Mr. Chapman went back to the scrutineers and said, look, we'll put 4 stud hubs onto the race car. Can we race it? Yeah. So they went out and they found enough Lotus Elite parts out there to put the 4 stud hubs and wheels back onto this thing, compromised it because the tyre width was blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they got the thing back, went back to the scrutineers, and they disqualified it. They said, what now? And he said, well, if it was strong enough with 4 studs, you wouldn't have put 5 studs on it. And to be honest, knowing the shenanigans that Colin Chapman got up to, they were probably fucking right too. He never added weight, ever. So anyway, I think he stormed away and then never went back. So many things have happened in motorsport. It's all about how far can you push the rule book. Can you push it to the absolute limit? There was, and I think it was another Lotus example. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but basically what they used to do is they used to do a curb weight on the Formula One cars in the 1970s. Might have been 60s anyway, it doesn't matter. They used to do a curb weight, which was 10% battery. That gives me a bit of a warning, doesn't it? Used to do a curb weight, and it was about 0 fuel, no driver, air and tyres, and that was it. There was a minimum weight for that car. So when it would come in after its victory, the scrutineers would basically get the mechanics out to pump whatever fuel was left in the tank out of the tank. Yeah, they'd run it over the weighbridge, and naturally would disqualify you for not being French enough. Because let's face it, the French dominate Formula One. No, they don't anymore. Anyway, I've got nothing against the French. Why are you going on about, Richard? They're perfectly pleasant. They don't make good bitter, though. Anyway, so this was a story, and I think one of the mechanics admitted to it decades later, was they had like this umbrella handle stick that went into the fuel tank, okay, and it just had a pump on the end of it, this umbrella kind of stick, hollow, and it sucked the fuel out of the fuel tank. But underneath the hoop on the handle, there was a hole, so the mechanic would have his finger over the hole, and it would be sucking the fuel out, and when he thought he'd sucked enough weight out of this car, he would just move his finger slightly so it then starts sucking air through the hole rather than fuel out the tank, path of least resistance. And of course the scrutineers go, yep, that's it, tank's empty, and weigh it. Anyway, enough of this bollocks. I hope you enjoyed that. You might not have done. It's just nonsense, isn't it? Anyway, stay sane, take care, be good, and happy Christmas. What you can have of it anyway. And I mean that. Happy Christmas.